Some building projects fail miserably, leaving behind shocking catastrophes that cost millions of dollars and cause terrible casualties. Others succeed in becoming masterpieces. From bridges that fail to open to buildings that lean dangerously to one side, some blunders are so big they become famous. Not only mistakes, but lessons picked up the hard way. A list of the 15 most egregious building blunders ever made. Number 15, Sampoong Department Store. What follows is a sad tale. It was entirely preventable, but hundreds of lives were sacrificed nevertheless. A landmark of South Korea's booming economy was the Sampoong Department Store in Seoul. A 5-story high-end retail store was crammed into what was originally a 4-story office building in 1987. The designs were revised on the fly during construction. In order to install the escalator rails, it was necessary to cut corners, such as removing support columns and placing a massive air conditioning unit on top of the building, which weighed 45 tons. The structure first welcomed 40,000 guests per day upon its opening in 1990. But these hasty adjustments led to serious flaws in the structure. Tragically, 502 people were killed, and 937 were injured when the whole south wing of the building fell in less than 20 seconds on June 29, 1995, at 5:52 p.m. For its time, this building fall was the deadliest during a period of relative calm. A disastrous pancaking effect occurred when the 5th story broke way under the weight of the air conditioning equipment and the building's defective construction. The worst thing is that management disregarded warning signs of fissures developing months prior to the accident. A combination of carelessness, avarice, and lax safety regulations led to this catastrophe. It was not an accident. Discover the devastating consequences of taking shortcuts from South Korea to New Orleans. Number 14. AquaDom. They boasted about it as the biggest cylindrical aquarium on Earth, but none anticipated that it would endanger the same species it was designed to save. An impressive 82 feet in height, the Berlin AquaDom housed 1,500 tropical fish in 1 million gallons of water and was a sight to see. With its breathtaking aquatic exhibit and elevator ride into its heart, the Risen Blue Hotel's aquarium became a popular tourist destination after its 2003 opening. The AquaDom was a landmark of cutting-edge engineering and design, representing an unprecedented fusion of man-made structures with the natural world via its transparent acrylic walls. On the other hand, there was a secret weakness in the AquaDom. Hundreds of fish perished and millions of dollars in damage were caused when the enormous tank unexpectedly broke in December 2022, flooding the hotel and nearby streets. Engineers were in a state of panic as they tried to figure out what had gone wrong with the building, which had cost millions to build after this incident. In the end, it was determined that the collapse was caused by a long-lost structural defect in the floor. Despite its eye-catching appearance, the one-of-a-kind acrylic substance eventually developed microfractures due to the continual pressure from the water. These vulnerabilities were exacerbated by environmental conditions, such as temperature variations, which ultimately resulted in the catastrophic catastrophe. A catastrophic event occurs when a tank explodes, while a tragic one occurs when a whole structure collapses. Number 13. Hyatt Regency walkway collapse. A seemingly little alteration made to wow visitors in our next tale swiftly escalated into a catastrophic event. A breathtaking atrium with almost weightless pathways was a major selling point for the Kansas City, Missouri-based Hyatt Regency Hotel. Upon its opening in July 1980, the hotel immediately became associated with contemporary style and opulence. Unthinkable events occurred on July 17, 1981, during a bustling Friday night dance. Tragically, the partygoers' packed 2nd and 4th story walkways crashed into the lobby below. With 114 fatalities and nearly 200 injuries in just a few seconds, it was the worst building collapse in United States history at the time. What went wrong? A crucial modification to the walkway support system structure was uncovered during the examination. Constructional changes necessitated the addition of 2 sets of rods, one from the ceiling to the 4th floor walkway and the other linking the fourth-floor walkway to the second-floor walkway. These were substitutes for the original plan, which called for a single set of hanger rods suspended from the ceiling. This apparently insignificant modification caused the top walkway's connecting points to bear twice as much weight as they were originally intended to. Tragically, the walkways collapsed onto those below as a consequence of the connecting points failing. Changes in engineering standards and construction rules were implemented on a national level in response to the catastrophe, which highlighted the need for engineers to guarantee the safety of their projects. That disastrous shift caused anarchy, and as you'll see, it wasn't the first time carelessness had disastrous consequences. Number 12. Lotus Riverside Complex. How is it possible for a tall, sturdy structure to unexpectedly topple down like a massive domino without crashing to the ground? The 11 skyscrapers that made up Shanghai's Lotus Riverside Complex represented the pinnacle of contemporary city life. Built to accommodate the city's fast growth, the project's high-end apartments were ready for occupancy in 2009. Buyers were drawn to the Medeo Real Estate Company's complex in a flash because of its prime location and stunning architecture. Until June 27, 2009, everything seemed to be going swimmingly. One of the structures toppled over that morning, ripped from its base by nothing more than gravity and a catastrophic oversight. There were no explosions or earthquakes involved. The building's foundation had become weaker due to excavation work for an underground garage adjacent to it, which had displaced large quantities of dirt. This surprising error during construction was the main reason. The situation was made much worse by the severe rains that preceded the collapse, since the already weakened soil was unable to hold the weight of the building. Legal action and inquiries ensued from this tragedy, which should serve as a stark warning to anyone involved in building in fast-developing urban areas. As this structure crumbled, our subsequent catastrophe surged upon us like a tidal wave. Number 11. Hard Rock Hotel Collapse. In a project worth millions of dollars, what are the consequences of taking shortcuts? This was a recipe for catastrophe for the Hard Rock Hotel. An opulent 18-story structure, the Hard Rock Hotel was intended to adorn the lively canal street with a touch of contemporary style. A rooftop bar and pool deck with breathtaking views of the city were part of the ambitious plans that started construction in 2018. Already a prominent feature of the skyline as the project drew closer in 2019, the building was almost finished. On October 12, 2019, nonetheless, tragedy struck. 3 employees were killed, and scores more injured when the upper floors of the partially completed structure abruptly gave way, releasing a torrent of concrete and steel. As a section of the structure collapsed, ensnaring individuals under its rubble, debris rained down on the streets below. The population was shocked when rescue operations were hindered because the building remained dangerously unstable. Attempts to reduce costs led to the discovery of a serious defect. To allow for taller ceilings without increasing the building's total height, the steel beams on the 16th and 17th floors were significantly decreased in size. The higher floors collapsed due to the overstressing of these smaller beams, which were originally meant to support far less weight than what was really needed. According to experts, the beams were 300% overstressed, which caused the calamity. But slacking off is nothing new. Negligence has disastrous consequences, as we will see in our following chapter. Number 10. The Walkie Scorchie. Now we may discuss a structure that became an unintentional death ray despite its attention-grabbing architecture. 20 Firch Street, whose top-heavy shape earned it the nickname the Walkie Scorchie, cost more than £200 million to construct and was finished in 2014. The bulbous form of this London commercial skyscraper, created by architect Raphael Vignoli, is instantly recognizable. Its top floors stretch outward, providing enough space for office rents and a breathtaking sky garden. But the Walkie Scorchie was a much less endearing moniker that the structure swiftly acquired. The building's concave glass exterior reflected and focused sunlight into the streets below, creating an unintended effect similar to that of a large concave mirror. Street temperatures might reach 117 degrees Celsius, 243 degrees Fahrenheit, in the summer due to the strong sunshine, which allegedly melted components of a parked Jaguar and burnt the surfaces of adjacent buildings. A local Londoner immediately dubbed the building the Frying Scraper. In order to alleviate the severe glare, quick actions were made to set up temporary screens, and subsequently, a BR Soleil, a permanent sunshade, was included. This building was on fire, but the next one was bent by the force of the wind alone. Number 9. The sinking of the Vasa. It would be tragic if, after constructing a magnificent vessel, a mistake caused it to sink on its first voyage. The Vasa was ordered in 1625 by King Gustavus Adolphus, with the intention of becoming the naval pride of Sweden. Constructed between 1626 and 1628, the ship was one of the most formidable warships of her day, measuring over 69 meters in length and ornamented with elaborate carvings and 64 bronze cannons. During the 30 Years' War, the Swedish monarch saw his goal for a naval superpower realized with the construction of the Vasa. The Vasa set sail from Stockholm harbor for her first trip on August 10, 1628. The massive warship's magnificent design was on full show as hundreds of onlookers flocked to see it take sail. Yet tragedy befell barely 1,300 meters from the coast. The ship tipped over precariously as a sudden blast of wind filled the sails. In a matter of minutes, the formidable Vasa plummeted to the harbor floor as water rushed in from the exposed gun ports. An emphasis on showmanship and weaponry at the expense of stability led to the ship's defective design. Because there wasn't enough ballast below decks and too much weight on top, the Vasa was top-heavy. Shipbuilders were rushed to finish the ship by the king, despite testing its stability before launch. However, they disregarded the warnings concerning the ship's instability. The Vasa was rescued in 1961 after being submerged for almost 300 years, and it was found to be in astonishingly good condition. It is a memorial to one of the most notorious building disasters in history, and may be seen today at Stockholm's Vasa Museum. Our next calamity submerged a whole town, just as the Vasa lies at the bottom. Number 8. The Aon Center. The following building was ostentatiously luxurious. However, it was unprepared for the actual weather conditions experienced by its home city. With its striking facade of Italian Carrara marble, the 1973-built Aon Center in Chicago stands out from its predecessor, the Standard Oil Building. What made the structure stand out, the use of marble, also became its undoing, a huge mishap. The marble exterior started to show signs of fissures just a year after it was finished. In some instances, whole panels, each weighing more than 300 pounds, fell off the structure, creating a significant danger for the region below. The delicate marble couldn't withstand the wildly fluctuating temperatures in Chicago, despite its aesthetic appeal. The expansion and contraction of the marble over the hot summers and chilly winters caused the fissures. The remedy ended up being a full refacing of the whole structure, after many efforts at interim remedies such as putting steel straps to keep the panels in place failed. Sturdier Mount Airy granite was used in lieu of the original highly esteemed marble. An astounding $80 million, more than half the building's initial cost, was spent on the recladding endeavor in the early 1990s. What transpired during the construction of the Sydney Opera House would blow your mind if you thought the troubles at the Aon Center were expensive. Number 7. Teton Dam disaster. A little oversight was sufficient to transform the Teton Dam into a destructive powerhouse, concealed behind its majestic walls. This dam, situated in southern Idaho, was built by the United States Bureau of Reclamation from 1972 to 1976. It was a massive undertaking with a height of 305 feet and a width of 3,000 feet, intended to manage floods and provide irrigation to the neighboring regions. The architecture of the dam was revolutionary for its time since it used compacted earth and rock layers. On the other hand, Crews discovered minor dam leaks on June 5, 1976, when the reservoir was initially approaching its maximum capacity. They worked hard to seal the leaks, but it became clear that things were worse than they had anticipated. Rexburg and Sugar City were hit hard when, by midday, a huge hole was opened up, and within hours, more than 250,000 acre-feet of water was spilled downstream. A 15-foot-tall water wall ripped across the region, killing 11 people, displacing 13,000 and damaging more than $2 billion. Seepage was a common problem since the dam was constructed on very porous rock. The building methods were also subpar, leading to water seepage and internal erosion caused by the inadequately compacted earth and rock used to build the dam's core. The quick increase in water levels, which put more strain on the dam, was another something the engineers had overlooked. In our following chapter, we'll see that water isn't the only adversary. The sun may be just as bad. Number 6. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. In the span of a few months, how can an engineering marvel worth millions of dollars become a twisted ruin? Stunning and spanning 2,800 feet over Washington State's Puget Sound, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was finished in July 1940. The Galloping Gertie Bridge, so called because of its propensity to wobble in the wind, was the third longest suspension bridge in the world when it was constructed. The sleek modern form of the bridge was an attempt to save expenses without sacrificing efficiency. The most recent developments in the theory of suspension bridges were included into the bridge's design by Léon Moissef. Its minimalist, cutting-edge style was typical of the modern era. Its attractiveness was also lauded. One of the most infamous architectural blunders in history was about to happen because of a crucial omission that was hiding behind that sophisticated facade. On November 7, 1940, a mere 4 months after its grand debut, tragedy befell. The bridge twisted dramatically due to winds approaching 40 miles per hour, and the whole deck swayed like a ribbon in the wind. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge gave way to the icy waters of Puget Sound after just a few hours of being bent beyond support. And too aerodynamic design was the source of the issue. There were no safeguards on the bridge to avoid this kind of aerodynamic instability. The combination of its fragile construction and this neglect led to its demise. Even though it collapsed catastrophically, the lessons acquired from Galloping Gertie are crucial to the safety of suspension bridges today because of their effect on current bridge design. As the Tacoma Narrows Bridge twisted and collapsed, the next building we saw shattered under the weight of its own exterior. Number 5. Sydney Opera House. The path to the Sydney Opera House, with its distinctive sail-shaped roof, was far from easy, but the building itself became an emblem of invention and beauty. The original estimate for the duration and budget of this structure was 4 years and 7 million Australian dollars. It was finally finished in 1973. The actual outcome was that the project went 14 years over schedule and approximately 1,300% over budget, clocking in at a whopping 100 million Australian dollars. The unique idea of the Opera House, which was designed by Danish architect Jørn Utzon, had several technical hurdles, resulting in many redesigns, most notably for its famous concrete shells. Because of these concerns, the then first method for solving structural issues in large-scale construction, computer modeling, had to be used. Significant internal strife added insult to injury in the form of budget overruns. The interior design was left incomplete when Utzon quit in 1966 due to political issues. The acoustics were severely compromised as a consequence of these shortcomings. Musicians often griped about hardly being able to hear their own instruments due to the notoriously poor sound quality at the venue, which ironically was intended to showcase music and performance. Over the last several years, the Opera House spent approximately $300 million AUD undergoing extensive renovations to address these concerns. To enhance the sound quality and functionality, new acoustic panels and adjustable sound reflectors were installed as part of these modifications. In spite of its troubled beginnings, the Opera House has persevered to become a contemporary architectural marvel and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The next building wasn't as fortunate as the Opera House, which did succeed in the end. Number 4. Champlain Towers. The seaside fantasy that was our final building for today had a secret weakness that nobody saw until it was too late. A 12-story condo building in the Surfside district of Florida, Champlain Towers South, was completed in 1981. The building material, steel-reinforced concrete, was chosen for its durability and sturdiness. Those in search of beach life and breathtaking vistas flocked to the 136-unit complex. Standing tall beside the Atlantic Ocean, the tower betrayed its attraction by concealing a ticking time bomb. At 1:22 a.m. on June 24, 2021, tragedy occurred in the early hours of the day. Less than 12 seconds after the building's fall, the whole complex was reduced to ruins. There were 98 fatalities and many injuries caused by the collapse. A troubling concoction of elements was uncovered during investigations. There have been reports of major structural problems with the building dating back to 2018. The concrete slab below the pool had taken a major beating from water seeping in from the deck and the constant leaks. The steel reinforcing was rusting and the concrete was crumbling. The building's foundation, which rested on reclaimed wetlands, added insult to injury in terms of sinking. Champlain Towers South was one of the most deadly buildings in U.S. history when it collapsed because of the delayed repairs after the 2018 warnings. Number 3. Seoul Bridge Collapse. The next one depicts the terrible symbolism of the challenges brought about by the rapid urbanization in South Korea, a bridge that was constructed to link two of the busiest regions of Seoul. A 48-meter span of Seoul's Seongsu Bridge gave way on October 21, 1994, sending cars crashing into the Han River during rush hour. Tragically, 32 people lost their lives and 17 were wounded when a bus crashed into the river. The majority of the victims were passengers on board the bus. The fact that it was avoidable just adds to the horror of what happened. A number of notifications of bridge fractures were received in the hours leading up to the collapse, but no prompt measures were implemented. The Seongsu Bridge was opened to traffic in 1979, has a daily capacity of 880,000 cars. But daily traffic increased to about 160,000 cars by the early 1990s. Inadequate maintenance, rusty pins, bad welding, and shoddy construction all contributed to the collapse. The structural breakdown was caused by the excessive traffic, which exceeded the bridge's initial capacity. The investigation also found that the bridge had received almost little maintenance throughout its 15 years of service. The Seongsu Bridge disaster demonstrated the perils of putting rapid urbanization ahead of public safety. It revealed problems with South Korea's Miracle on the Han River project, which prioritized short-term gains above long-term stability in order to save money. A sea change occurred in the way the government handled infrastructure projects after this tragedy, which resulted in major changes to the country's building rules. A great price was paid for this lesson. Many lives were lost. In 1997, after extensive reconstruction, the bridge was reopened to traffic with upgraded safety features. Tragically, this bridge fall was the first of many casualties caused by our subsequent calamity. Number 2. Leaning Tower of Pisa. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, perhaps the most famous architectural disaster in human history. It seems to be a work of art of medieval architecture at first sight, but then you detect the obvious flaw. No, it wasn't the original idea. In 1173, work began on this independent bell tower that would become known as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Up until they reached the third story, the builders made steady progress. Then, disaster struck. Changes started to occur in the subsurface. The foundation, which was just 3 meters deep and sitting on unstable, mushy soil, was the cause. The skyscraper began to tilt before construction was even halfway complete due to this crucial error. Conflicts delayed construction for over a century before work could begin again. Surprisingly, the building was spared from imminent collapse because the delays allowed the earth time to settle. When construction on the tower was wrapped up in 1372, its tilt had already become instantly recognizable. The lean became more severe over the years, reaching a precarious 5.5 degrees in the 1800s and giving rise to genuine concerns of collapse in the 1900s. From 1993 to 2001, engineers spearheaded a huge restoration operation, including cutting-edge techniques such as soil extraction and lead counterweights to secure the building. Thanks to these measures, the tower's tilt has been decreased to 3.97 degrees, and specialists now predict that it will remain safe for another 300 years or more. Fascinatingly, however, the tower has been spared seismic damage due to the relatively soft ground underneath it. The tower was spared heavy damage from the seismic shocks of 4 big earthquakes because the shifting soil has absorbed them. The lean may have been a disastrous decision, but it has also had an unexpected but significant impact on the stability of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. However, how are errors handled when they occur at a later stage? Next, we will examine a different example. Number 1. Rana Plaza. Rana Plaza seemed to be a typical busy day on April 24, 2013, but something terrible was hiding under the surface, and it would eventually break the lives of thousands of people. 5 garment factories, situated in the 8-story Rana Plaza in Dhaka, Bangladesh's Savar district, produced goods for well-known Western companies such as Primark, Walmart, and Benetton. The construction of the building was never designed to support the weight and vibration of large industrial equipment. It was originally intended for use as stores and offices. However, the owners recognized an opportunity and turned the factory into a garment manufacturing plant, illegally adding 4 floors without the necessary permissions. Employees were removed from the building after discovering wall fissures on April 23, 2013. However, plant management were under pressure to fulfill production targets and forced the workers to return the next day, threatening to withhold a month's salaries despite the obvious danger indicators. It was a deadly choice. A total of 1,134 people were killed, and nearly 2,500 were injured when the building fell on April 24, 2013, at 8:57 a.m. It went down in history as one of the most devastating industrial catastrophes. The building's structural integrity was damaged during construction due to the use of poor materials and the unstable, filled-in ground upon which it was built, according to investigations. The building gave way due to the vibrations from the equipment and generators, as well as the extra weight from the upper stories. There were major changes brought about by the tragedy, notwithstanding the terrible death toll. Over 2.5 million workers in 1,600 industries had their safety enhanced as a consequence of the establishment of the Bangladesh Accord on Fire and Building Safety. Even though the Rana Plaza tragedy rocked the globe, our last tale nonetheless left a whole town in grief.